Former President Donald Trump has invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination while being deposed today by lawyers from the New York Attorney General's office.
That's right. The deposition is part of the office's civil investigation into the Trump Organization's finances. The former president announced his decision to not answer any questions during the deposition. Earlier today, he maintained his innocence and condemned the investigation as a, quote, politically motivated witch hunt targeting his family, company, and others. The former president also rallied against New York Attorney General Letitia James. He called her a, quote, failed politician whose investigation is a, quote, disgrace to the legal system. Her office launched the probe in January after announcing it had obtained, quote, significant evidence the Trump Organization used false or misleading asset valuations to obtain benefits.
Joining us now is CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa. He is joining us from New York City. So, Robert, what is your latest reporting on this?
Good afternoon. I'm here in Lower Manhattan. Just behind me, steps away, former President Trump, based on our reporting, continues to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights to not engage in any kind of discussion with New York prosecutors who continue to have this civil investigation of the Trump Organization's finances. This is Trump mounting a legal challenge to not only the New York Attorney General, but to so many other legal challenges he's facing at this time, just days after the FBI searched his home in Florida at Mar-a-Lago. But this today is about the Trump finances, even as he's dealing with the FBI, the January 6th grand jury investigation at the Justice Department, as well as the congressional investigation of January 6th on Capitol Hill.
And Bob, we know the former president himself has formally criticized people who pleaded the Fifth. How is he responding to sort of that contradiction, and how are Republicans responding to the former president pleading the Fifth here?
The former president has a message of defiance, not only today, but since the FBI search of his home in Florida. He believes he is being wrongly investigated across all of these different areas. But he is certainly facing legal challenges. His aides say he's talking to different lawyers every day, trying to figure out a strategy, but he does feel good, I'm told, privately as well as publicly at times, about his political support within the Republican Party, even as he faces this legal onslaught and the investigations. A lot of Republicans are coming to him and saying, we still see you as our standard bearer for the 2024 election, should he decide to run.
And Robert, you touched on this a moment ago, but how is the former president dealing with that host of legal challenges that he is facing? Does there appear to be a strategy here, a targeted sort of strategy emerging?
The strategy is a classic Trump strategy that you can trace back to his time here in New York in the 1970s. It's fighting. He is fighting the investigations. He's insisting on his innocence, and he's questioning the motives of the prosecutors here in New York. He's questioning the motives of his investigators in Congress. This is a former president who's so unlike other former presidents, not going into political winter, not returning home like George W. Bush did in Texas, and painting pictures and keeping a low profile. He remains in many ways someone with immense political capital within the Republican Party. And because of that, and because of his personality, going back to his days here in Manhattan as a real estate developer, this is someone who fights, he litigates, he doesn't quit. And that is a challenge sometimes for his critics as they deal with him, like today, not engaging, but instead deciding to invoke the Fifth.
All right, so, Bob, what is next for Mr. Trump? Again, we don't know for sure if he's going to run again in 2024, but how, if at all, might these various investigations, including the New York Attorney General's investigation, impact his 2024 prospects?
Sometimes it's worth stepping back and thinking about the context of what we are witnessing here today. In any other circumstance, a former president being deposed by a state attorney general in a civil case about financial impropriety, alleged financial impropriety, at least that's what's being investigated, would be a global sensation. Just that one investigation alone that's happening here with the deposition behind me in Lower Manhattan. But at the same time, Trump is facing this legal challenge. He is facing an investigation by a grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, about his conduct in the days and weeks after the 2020 election. He's facing a grand jury at the Justice Department about January 6th. So far, the DOJ has not said he's in any way a criminal target, but the DOJ grand jury, based on CBS News' reporting, is certainly looking at Trump's inner circle in the White House during that period. And as we all know, he is facing the January 6th House Select Committee in Congress. And so this is a wide array of issues facing a former president. And the context is, well, unprecedented in every way.
All right. Well, Robert Costa in downtown Manhattan, we thank you for your reporting on this.
Thank you.